I've been blessed to have a diverse collection of friends, different backgrounds, races, ages, stages of life, and we've been talking about what's going on in our world. These conversations have been so helpful to us, we decided to record and share them because it's easy to find content that suggests that anyone who thinks differently than you is your enemy. But we believe that God has made us brothers in one great big family, and our different perspectives have a place of agreement that can draw us closer rather than split us apart.
I had a talk with Bernie that was a very real situation, and one of those real places that he found himself in was being a person that has not been afraid to say, yes, Black lives do matter too, and it needs to be said, and I wanna stand on the side of justice, and not just say that in theory, but to call me, who he considers his brother, and say it to me like, hey, I want you to know I'm with you. I stand with you. Um, I love you and your family, and it hurts me the idea of you being treated differently based on the color of your skin, and I can't stomach the idea of you losing your life because of it, and being very passionate about that early. Bernie did not have to be coaxed into saying the truth that Black Lives Matter, but there's a big difference between the truth that Black Lives Matter and the organization Black Lives Matter. And for some believers, like Bernie found himself in this position, it can feel like a conflict. Like, wait a second, I don't want people to think that I'm about these things when I say that Black Lives Matter. So, Bernie, can you just share a little bit about what that felt like to be finding out the negative things that you were finding out and have those two things challenged?
Yeah, well, first of all, I called you out of my heart, my love for, like you said, my love for you and your family.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, all I could, I believe that was like May 26th. It was like the day after
Right.
Memorial Day. And so all I could see were, and I have a huge, you know, brotherhood of all different races. And all I could think of was, what if that was you?
Mm-hmm.
What if that was you on that pavement? And what would I do? What would be my response? And I was so, if you could have seen me, I was very animated in my living room as the crowd was saying, "Hey man, get off him, man," and all the things they were yelling. And I was pacing in my living room because if that would have been you, and even if it wasn't you, I would have hoped that I would have, tackled that individual. And yeah, I would have paid a price to do that, but I would have paid a price to do that. And so
Yeah.
that's where I was coming from, when I called you that day. Um, and I honestly hadn't ever researched,
Mm-hmm.
the Black Lives Matter thing. All I know is that when that happened, it did something in my heart. And I think that sentiment was alive in everybody who watched that murder on television. And I think the movement, if that's what we can call it, missed or had a great opportunity, because at that moment, all of America that had any common sense at all, was for Black lives. And the atrocity that they watched, man, I think everybody was united, for at least a month, until other things came to light. But man, at that moment, what an opportunity, because they captured the heart of the nation.
Yeah, and I think I think that that's an interesting point, that there was a perception for a lot of people that was shook during that time, because there was a lot of people who thought just like you thought, who at times thought just like I thought. Okay, this one right here, this is a no-brainer. That,
Hmm.
like, come on, like, look at this.
And
Look,
this has got to stop.
right? Like who's gonna say to this? Yeah, but what were the circumstances?
No.
Yeah.
Who's going to say, wait for an investigation? Who's going to look at this murder and say, yeah, but what kind of person is he? And what was he involved in? And what was he saying to those cops? There was a part of me that allowed myself to go, yeah, we're all on the same page. And then it kind of shook a lot of people when folks who you thought believed the same way that you believed started saying some of those things that seem inconceivable. But that's part of the issue that we've been working through over time, is this idea that, wait a second, everybody is not seeing this the same way. There's some things that you would think we would all agree on, like the statement Black Lives Matter. You think, like, why do we have to explain that to anybody? You know?
I think what you're saying, though, Alvin, I think on that note, not meaning to jump in over you, but I did.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Is that we have to consider that this has been the fabric of the country from the beginning, the inception. So we're looking at it because as people of color saying, hey, you know, this is obvious, this is murder. Other people don't see it that way because it's not affecting them the same way. When you can walk down the street with freedom and not worry about being harassed just because of the color of your skin, you don't see those kind of things the same way. Your perspective is different. And so, like with Bernie, like with John, they understand that they have a different perspective. They understand they have a different privilege because of their skin. So even though they understand that, there's still things that they're like, man, I don't get it. And they can't. And there's nothing wrong with them not getting it. It's just the fact is they want to get it, though. And that's what makes the difference. We don't get that option to say, you know, I don't have the ability to be ignorant about what's going on in this country. I have to be well aware because it's life or death for me. If I walk outside my house and I'm not aware, I can be killed. I don't have that luxury. So when folks that believe like we do, so we thought, could look at a situation like that murder and say, well, maybe he was a criminal. No, he was not a criminal. Even if he was a criminal.
Even if he was.
Even if he was a criminal. That what happened does not deserve any type of
Excessive force.
yes.
Qualification.
In this case, lethal and deadly force.
Exactly. That did not deserve lethal actions. And then on top of that, it was a modern day lynching is the best words I can say, because everyone just stood around, cops included, and those that were the bystander says, hey, stop. Cops didn't listen. And because we're Black, we look at that and we're like, okay, maybe this guy's going to get off. So when the movement started, which is not it didn't start when this happened. It just continued from when Trayvon Martin was killed. This movement started with 4 mothers when Trayvon Martin was killed. And it's like, listen, we got to do something. Our kids are dying. And it just kind of transcended into other things.
Yeah, and that's why there's 2 things that you said that are like really key to point out, is that sometimes we use phrases like you don't understand and you don't get it, like it's an indictment.
Yeah.
And to be perfectly like bare bones honest, you know, I love John, I love Bernie. I'm so glad that they don't know the actual physical embodiment of this.
Yeah.
I'm glad. I don't hold it as an indictment against them. I'm not saying that you do.
Yeah.
When we say, oh yeah, they recognize that there's an aspect of this that they will not have to physically experience.
Right.
What I also love about them is the fact that they don't stick their head in the sand by saying, well, I can't really relate to that because I'm not Black and it's not going to happen to me. So, yeah, hope that works out for you guys. No, that, you know, Bernie cried real tears on the phone with me about the thought of something happening to me.
Mm-hmm.
not to prove his wokeness. It hit him in a place
Yes.
where it hurt him. He won't understand walking into a store and being looked at side-eyed because of the color of his skin, but he can relate to the idea of losing someone that he loves
Yes.
just based on something cosmetic. That's why we're able to talk and come to a place of agreement, because there are these places where our humanity intersects regardless of race and background and culture, and we're able to say, hey, this, as we parse all these things, let's have some spiritual level godly common sense. There are these places where we have different experiences, but they are not dividers. They are unifiers.
Exactly. Exactly.
You know, there's a lot of things that are being used as dividers that actually should be unifiers. And the phrase, the concept, the principle or the movement, whatever you call it, Black Lives Matter, for brothers and sisters in Christ, that should be three words that would unify us together.
Yeah.
Like, yes, this is what God has taught us. This is my family that this principle is meant to address a problem. We ought to be able to agree on this, and there's a lot of people who claim to represent the same God that we all serve,
Yes.
who are saying things that don't sound like it's that cut and dry.
Yeah.
And that's something that we need to address and make a distinction.